Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever and whenever you're listening to this. Welcome. Welcome to today's Town Hall session. We're writing the Town Hall number 24. How insane is that?
24.
24. This is impressive. We're getting close to doing town halls for 1 year, which is amazing.
Wow. Wow, you're right, huh? Because it's every other week. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Oh yeah, I mean, it is pretty impressive to be honest. Doing this here every bi-weekly. I believe in the beginning we did this weekly, and then we said, all right, this is too much. We need to do this bi-weekly, and now we're doing it bi-weekly, which is great. But apart from that, yeah, I hope you do have a couple of drinks, and I hope the people in the audience do have a couple of drinks, because I do have wine, and I'm ready for today.
Got wine ready.
Great. Yeah,
I don't have wine. I have a soda.
let's see. Do we have topics today? I mean, we can talk a little bit about the current beta version and a couple of fixes that are in there.
Where did my chat window go? There it is. Got it. All right. Got the
Uh,
chat up.
and
Now
quickly,
it's on.
before we dive into anything, guys, people in the audience, if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. Please raise your hand or use the chat in the town hall chat. These town halls are for you guys so that you can ask questions. There are no stupid questions, but don't be silly.
First question comes from E. Anderson. He says, "Did you say wine?"
Yeah, correct. I did say wine. It is a needed drink to do down halts.
What time is it there?
It's 9 p.m., so it's fine.
Wine time.
Yeah, it's I do have a little bit of my favorite wine that I do purchase from a winery very close to me. It's like a drive of 15 minutes, and it is really handsome. It's like a family business, and they do everything in their basement, which is kind of funny because their grandfather, like, he's smoking all day long, and there's this weirdo in the basement selling you wine, but it tastes fantastic.
Sounds interesting.
And I also do have like a plastic bag full of apple wine next to me if my bottle
A
goes
plastic
empty.
bag of apple wine.
Yeah, it's like
Wow.
5 liters.
And you're living under a bridge.
No, but it's a local drink here, so I need to adapt.
That's awesome. You just like put a straw in it and like
No, you
dip
do
it?
have like this press thingy on the bottom of it where then the wine drips out.
Mm, mm. Does it come in
Mm.
a cardboard box?
No, it's in a plastic bag, but it's the same thingy as in a cardboard box.
Okay. Okay. Let's see what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
So you are listening to Open Source Miners United Town Hall number 24. We have our legendary host, Wantclue. Wantclue, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for being here, and thank you helping all the time, entertaining all the people, and doing amazing stuff. And yeah, I mean, I guess thank you for even considering creating a project like Bitaxe. Where would we
Well,
be all day long if we wouldn't be in the Awesome You Discord?
I mean, it certainly wouldn't be as cool if it weren't for a lot of the people that are in the chat here today. I see lots of awesome contributors that have joined us today.
In fact, yeah.
We had a tricky bug the last couple days. I was I was doing some Thanksgiving stuff with the family, so I couldn't really dig into it, but I finally got into it yesterday, and yeah, we had a tricky bug with that STS miner, one of our incredible firmware testers found. And it was basically that on the latest ESP miner, it just wasn't working on the previous generation Bitaxe on the Supra. And it's awesome that he found that because I was just doing all my development on Gamma, the latest and greatest. And
Yeah, it's kind of
yeah,
hard because we get further with newer hardware, and then you don't really look back, and we need to make sure that we don't left behind all the people with older hardware, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's tough because we're moving forward pretty fast, and so the list of previous generation miners is getting longer and longer. Which no apologies for moving fast, but it just you might get some of these legacy bugs.
It's okay. I mean, you do have bugs, but we're really quick in fixing them. I'd say compared to companies, and we are obviously not a company. We're not even any sort of foundation or anything else. We're just these weirdos in the internet doing some weird stuff with money,
Yes, just some weirdos.
which is
Did
amazing,
you
by the
see that
way.
there is? I don't know how many of these are like real people versus bots, but it says on the OSMU Discord server stats, it says there's 4,777 members.
Yeah, I see that. It is amazing. What a
That's
great number.
crazy. How much? What percentage of those do you think are like actual people
I'd
that
say
like just like
close. To be
joined?
honest, I'd say close to like 80%, maybe a little bit more. I don't think that we
E.
do
Anderson
have.
says 83.7%. That's a very specific number.
Uh huh. How do you come up with that number?
Dan M1KK confirmed real person. So we have at least one real person.
Okay,
We know
okay.
that.
Then M1KK he gets the role of a verified member. There you go. Now you're a verified
So, all
member.
right. So we have one out of 4,777 people are real for sure. Killa says 90%.
I, I mean,
Um,
we do have bots from time to time in here. We do have six bots on our own. And for the people that are in the audience right now, I know a couple of you are aware of the fact that sometimes things are not working as expected on this server. Uh, some things like a couple of these bots that we do have, they do have paid subscriptions, and sometimes we forget to just resubscribe. So bear with us. Everything's all right. Nothing to worry about.
Derek confirmed real person.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I need to
That's
verify
real.
him as well. See, I do have something to do
Mr.
today.
V is not a real person. Sock pocket just said he's a sock puppet. You know what's crazy is so if we have 20% active users, which is what Killa says, that's 955 active users, which is still madness. That's crazy. It's a little bit more than just a couple of weird people on the internet.
I mean, it's plenty of weird people on the internet, right? I'm real.
That's true.
Lololo.
That's true. Like we're some weird people united over a particular thing, I guess.
I mean, to be
Yeah.
honest, I don't even know what I would do today if OSMU and the whole project wouldn't be alive. I mean, how could I daily go out there and screw companies like Brains and Bitmain all day long if OSMU wouldn't exist?
I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to imagine what we would be doing, but
Yeah.
pretty cool. Pretty cool that we're here doing this. So pretty thankful for all that for all y'all.
By the
Oh,
way,
I was talking about this bug.
yeah, yeah, and Anderson
You want to hear more
was
about this
saying that
bug?
he was quite surprised by the cause of the bug, and
Yeah,
that
me too.
he'd
Me
love
too.
to see a test bench project. And I just quickly wanted to dive into this that he'd like to see a test bench project because I do believe there's a sort of thing that we could use for this. I'm not sure. Do you guys know the dude Silex Experience or something like that? He goes by the platform X. He sent me a couple months ago this 19-inch 2U rack mount where you can attach like four Bitaxe devices, and I was thinking about next week or in a couple of days when I do receive my new server rack that I will put it in there and have like a max and ultra and super and camera in there to just have them constantly running and checking new firmware thingies. But this kind of comes close to a test bench, but I believe there could be better things to do.
I should take a picture. I mean, it's not automated, but I have a literal bench that is covered with bit axes for testing.
Oh, that's amazing.
Um, it's very manual at this point. But yes, E. Anderson is right. It would be well, I don't know about easy, but it would be awesome to automate all of this. If anyone has any ideas on how to automate that, I mean, I guess we could connect them all to like a Raspberry Pi or something and have a script that just grabs the latest firmware
No,
and
way
flashes it as
easier.
soon as it
We can
gets
use the
released.
API, and we just have, I don't know, a VM or a container that is running on your Docker host. And as soon as there's a new pre-release or a new release on GitHub, it just automatically pulls it and pushes it to the API of the Bitaxe.
And we need a test suite that like once it's flashed with a new firmware, it runs all these
Literally,
tests.
yes. We need unit tests, maybe.
And I have a problem with my BitX and the IP address conflict with my phone IP address. That's crazy. You're on the same network?
Who's writing that?
News Spotter Live 1973 says, I have a problem with my BitX and the IP address conflict with my phone IP address. That seems like it's a
The,
problem with your router
yeah,
because both of
probably.
those devices get their IP over DHCP. So if two of them are getting the same one, that's a router problem. The BitAx and your phone, they don't have any say in really what their IP address is. That's the DHCP server's job.
Yeah. Yeah, router issue. A couple of people are responding the same there. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That yeah, back to the bug. Good point. Man. So this bug was cool. So STS miner found it, let everyone know that this was going on, and we're like, oh dang.
hmm. They're ultra. Yeah, correct. Maybe we should start producing samples with them again. Yeah, for sure. Hmm.
The way the Ultra was sending or was initializing the ASIC, it was totally messed up, and it had been like since the beginning. It's kind of amazing that it worked, that it ever worked. It was sort of a weird coincidence that caused it to even work. Um, and it was a mismatch between when the baud rate gets changed on the ASIC and when the baud rate gets changed on the ESP32. Um,
This actually
and
reminded me of a thing that we had a couple months ago. Like we were discussing a couple of things on GitHub. It was like a tremendous long issue where plenty of people are commenting on it, and we were talking about things like the baud rate and stuff like this. But we never did really did anything. But baud rate was not the main topic.
I don't so oh I knew about yeah PMax. He knew all along. He just wasn't going to tell us. He's going to let us just figure it out on our own.
Yeah.
Develops builds character, right? Um, uh, yeah. one of the things that the so the way historically we've figured out how to interface with a new Bitmain chip when it comes out is to take a look at a dump from an Antminer. That's like where we hook up an Antminer to the logic analyzer using Survey Ipsilot's Ant Sniffer and just sort of record all the serial traffic between the control board and the hash boards. And now that I've done this, or I've done it with several of you here, we've gotten to the point where it's like kind of streamlined how it works, and can basically export the serial bytes from the logic analyzer software and then parse that into packets that we know how the packets are structured now, and basically see what all the register commands are to initialize and then to send work and use the ASIC. And so now, after this bug, I can see that this bug was caused by the fact that the S19XP, that the Antminer that contains the BM1366 chip that is in the Ultra, they changed the baud rate way earlier than all the rest of them. And so I'm sure it was me, I had just blindly copy pasted that into the ESP miner firmware when I was trying to get it to work.
Have you used
And
Gitplane?
what's that?
Have you used Gitplane?
I have used GitLab. It's kind of it's some of these files are pretty old now, and they've been like cleaned up and reformatted several times by different people who are committing to the repository. So with these older ones, I don't know that Git blame is always totally accurate, because someone will like change the indenting on it, and then it'll look like Git blame will say that they added that line. But let's see, what am I trying to say here? So I'm pretty sure it was my problem, my fault, but I had just copy pasted that in there. And then so we have it set up where in ESP miner, the ESP32 baud rate gets changed after the whole init sequence. Well, it turns out that with the BM1366 code, the way I had pasted the register rights in there, the ASIC baud rate was changing like more in the middle. And so that would cause it to just ignore the rest of the init sequence. And so that would cause it to not work. But then wait a second, why was it even working at all? And I believe that was because of a timing issue as to when the ESP32 actually changed its baud rate, causing it to happen earlier than it should have, to match up with when we were sort of erroneously changing the ASIC baud rate. So it was like a couple errors that caused it to work. Obviously we wouldn't have like released the firmware if it didn't work at all. It's just we happened to have these two errors. One broke it one way, and then the other broke it the other way, causing it to work. And then when we tested, it was like, it works. I still think that that was causing some issues where every now and then that timing delay that caused the two baud rate changes to match up, that was sort of a bit erratic. And I think every now and then would cause mining to not start on some of these miners. So I feel like we've got it fixed now, which is pretty rad. And E. Anderson worked for a while on the timing issue of when the ESP32 baud rate changes. So I think we've got that better sorted out now too. So fingers crossed, it should be quite a bit more reliable as to when mining starts and how well it starts.
Yeah, and especially with that bug now being figured out and being resolved, we do have currently the version 2.4.1 beta number, or the beta number 3 out there in the firmware tester chat. So let's see if this works for the next 24 hours. We do have the next firmware release, hopefully in the next 2 days, because we do have plenty of new changes, and I really want to push a little bit further with doing releases so that we do have occasional releases instead of having like every 4 weeks one major thing and people are freaking out, because we do have now so many new things or bug fixes. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice to do smaller, more frequent changes. I think we have so many people working on the firmware now, which is awesome.
It
That
is
we
really
just have a ton
amazing.
of changes every time now, which is pretty rad. Um,
It's kind of hard to keep up with looking at the code, doing some
oh my gosh,
approvals
yeah.
or commenting on stuff. And like the pull request, at least we got it down to 29 now, but we were sitting at over 40 a couple days ago.
Yes, yes. I saw you got in there and merged a bunch of them. I got in and merged a bunch of them. I think we closed a couple that are just
Yeah,
old.
let's quickly go over them. Like we do have, we've talked about the bug now, and that Ian Anderson resolved it, luckily. Let's quickly see. We do have don't abandon the first mining.notify by E. Anderson. Thank you. We do
Oh
have.
my gosh, that's a good one. I know you worked on that one for a while too. I futzed around with it for a while. It was like getting those queues, the job queues started was like a pain in the neck for some reason.
Hmm.
So yeah, huge props to Anderson for diving in on that one. Like synchronizing, like asynchronous queues are really hard.
So for all the people who are now thinking like, what the heck are we talking about? Basically, if you do try to communicate with a pool and get like instructions or have some sort of a communication with it, like, hey dude, I'm here, I want some work to do, please send me some shit. It is usually a common way on how to communicate with the stuff, but if you're trying to establish a connection, there are like different ways. We all know how HTTP work and HTTPS and what kind of back and forth you do have to do. But with asynchronous, I can't spell this word, I'm sorry, but with these kind of communications that we do have with Stratum V1, which is basically plain HTTP, it sometimes gets a little bit tricky. Especially some pools do have different queues of what kind of communication they do have. Some send information at the end of the chain, others send them earlier. It is confusing, and you need to make sure that you do have all of them correct in order to mine in the proper way. Because, for example, let's say you connect to a pool and your chain on your Bitaxe is set up that the first thing it wants is the mining.notify. Like, hey, I do have some new work for you. But the pool that you're now trying to communicate to is sending this as the last instruction, which would cause the Bitaxe to stall for, let's say, 15, 20 seconds until it reaches the next mining.notify before it actually starts mining, because it's sitting there idling and thinking, hey, I have nothing to do, I'm just chilling here, despite the fact the pool just used not the standard that all the other pools is using, which is quite common these days. Or since we have Stratum V1, to be honest, everybody's doing what he wants. There is no, this is Stratum V1. Like, everybody can do Stratum V1 the way he wants.
Yes, every Stratum server is a special snowflake, but you know, we also don't want like one like big standards body that just says how everything's going to be. Um,
I mean, a streamline for Stratum V1 would be okay, I'd say. Like everybody agreeing silently on how to send out the communication would be not that bad. But yeah, it is okay to do whatever you want. So we do have that, and that's now fixed. Um, I mean, I'm not testing everything all day long. Sometimes I'm just reading through the code and thinking, all right, this sounds good, or this makes sense, or something makes no sense. Then I do comment on the shit. But I mean, usually everything that Ian Anderson pushed so far was really great and just a relief, to be honest. So
I always run any PR on at least one Bidax before merging it. I would highly
that's for sure. But
encourage other maintainers to do the same.
that's for sure. But what I was referring to was like, if there's a change in, for example, the mining.notify, I'm not testing like 20 different pools. I'm not doing that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I do have like I went like this was a couple years ago. I went and like made an account on every single mining pool that I could possibly come up with, and have a long list of uh, of all of them. It takes a long time. It'd be really cool to have this test be automated. Maybe we can have that in the future. But yeah, it is kind of interesting to try some different pools. But yeah, it's right now it's currently way too much work to do that uh, for every new PR.
So we yeah, I agree on that. We already also talked about the bug that was preventing the ASIC baud rate and the ESP baud rate. Let's see. Mutatrum also worked on the Stratum message order for 9.8. I didn't merge that. Did you do that? I'm not sure what's in there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually the last time I went and tested a bunch of pools. I think Mutatrum was testing some pools, and I tested some. I tested Ant Pool. It's like got to make sure it works with the
Shame
Evil
on you.
Empire. Yes, I actually sent shares to Ant Pool. I'm sorry. I apologize, but it's for a good cause.
We also now do have a new quick link for pool.solosatoshiRadio.nl. So this is mostly just cosmetic. But while I'm saying that, I'm also thinking about, I'm not sure if you have heard this, Scott, probably you do have. CK Pool now also do have a European server, which is great because it reduced the latency from like 180 milliseconds on my end to like 17 milliseconds. Because
That's pretty rad.
yeah, it's running really close to me, so this is really great.
I was watching Con Colavas's Twitter thread about the process of setting that up. I guess he also merged the server or migrated the server to some other host or something like that.
Hmm. The next,
Yeah, that's good stuff.
yeah,
CK Pool is cool.
that's really good. The amazing thing about the European CK pool is it is completely run by him, and he said in the first place, like, listen, guys, I'd love to set up a European pool, but unfortunately, for the things I'm doing and the money it costs to run this infrastructure, I can't afford it. And like literally 2 hours later, he made this post. Someone sent him enough BTC to pay for it for over a year.
I mean, he does have a 2% fee, so I don't think this is an entirely altruistic opportunity
Yeah,
endeavor. But yeah, that's cool. I'm
I
glad
do
the community
agree.
stepped in to make this happen.
All right, enough of that. The next thing is pretty random, pretty cool. It's a change to the restart setting behavior and the state of how buttons act, if I'm not mistaken, because I've not seen this before. Like, if you do now do changes to any sort of things on your web UI, you can only click the save and restart button, for example, on the settings page, if you actually made any changes. I'm not sure if you already have this in there, but I do believe it's the PF493 by MRV777. If I'm not
Oh, has this
mistaken.
one been merged yet? I think it. I think it got merged, right?
It did, and it's
Yeah,
pretty
this is a good
nice.
one.
It's really a good one. It's also on the cosmetic side, but it is really helpful because now you can actually put in any shit. We could also extend this probably a little bit better in the way of having a function that is checking if, for example, the BTC address is in the form of usual BTC addresses that are out there, so that you cannot put in any bullshit. But then we also need to make sure that you can put in a username, because some pools require a username instead of a BTC address. I don't know. Maybe something like that.
Oh man, you know what we should do?
Hmm.
This always happens. Like, what if we had a little warning, like on the part where you have to type in your Wi-Fi address? What if
Hmm.
we had just a warning come up that says like you have a trailing space or you have a leading space?
What's
Like it
that
would still
for?
let you do it because I think that's probably a valid Wi-Fi name. But if it just gave you a little heads up, like, oh hey,
Hmm. That would be interesting. I mean, it
I've
also
definitely done
falls.
it myself. You're like, why isn't this Wi-Fi working? And you feel like you're like looking at it, you're like, I definitely typed it in right, but then there's a space at the end for some reason,
We need
and
some sort of like dump ass warning. Hey, you dump ass! There's a space at the end.
like, are you sure? Like that is a valid Wi-Fi name to have a space at the end, but chances are you didn't do that.
I mean, I don't even know what kind of firmware allows you to set up an SSH ID with a space at the end. I mean, Open WRT probably, Open Sense, PewSense maybe, but the heck, I don't know.
I don't know if we make it so that it's not allowed that like within like one day someone will be like, my Bitaxe isn't working. And then after lots of debugging, we'll be like, oh, cool. You're that guy who put a space at the end of your SSID.
Yeah, MRV is texting in the chat. I was just going to say that I want to give form validation feedback too, as it had one user say they couldn't click save but didn't realize they needed to fill out all fields, so that should get highlighted or something too. You know what, MRV? What also trips me on this conversation a little bit is, I mean, we do have the functionality, and I hope you guys do this with caution. If you press F12 in your browser, it enables basically setting frequencies and everything, whatever you want. And if you close F12 again, it seems like there's nothing in your frequency. I'm wondering if this interferes with the validation check on this end. It would be interesting to look at.
Oh yeah, we definitely have to test that. We should make an issue to make sure we don't forget about
I mean,
this.
maybe he already checked that. I don't know. Hopefully, no one
Dude,
is
that
using
password bug.
it.
Oh my gosh, the password bug was crazy, and it was so wild how it came about. Um, I was in Nashville at Bitcoin Park hanging out, and there's a guy there who he comes to visit Bitcoin Park a while. His name's Andy, and he works on a project called Distributed Charge, and it's really cool. He makes a like a Tesla like car charger
Hmm.
that you can pay for it with Sats, like over
Oh,
Lightning.
nice.
Um, and he always brings it with him to Bitcoin Park and sets it up to like charge like his Tesla. It's anyways. Actually, there was a bunch of people there last time who were using it. It's a really cool project. Anyways, he also has a project where he has like an exercise bike,
Hmm.
and he has like a demo he sets up where you can kind of like ride the exercise bike and essentially mine Bitcoin. It's sort of like a little bit abstracted, but like the idea is you generate electricity from mining this bike hooked up to a generator, and then that mines Bitcoin. And so he was setting this up. He was at Bitcoin Park setting it up to get ready for his demonstration at TabConf in Atlanta. And I was there, and he was like, he got like 12 bit axes and was going to hook up the bit axes to do the mining from the exercise bike, because exercise bikes don't actually generate that much electricity. And he was like, man, the Wi-Fi is not working at all. And he had a Raspberry Pi there that was making the access point. And he's like, dude, it's not working. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And so I tried it with my Bitaxe, not working at all. I spent like the whole day banging on this, trying to figure out what was going on. And
Oh my
I had to
goodness.
leave, and I was like, I'm sorry, dude. Like, I don't know why it's not working. He's like, oh man, like maybe I should get like a brains mini miner to do this with. I was like, no, like I'm so sorry. I don't know why this isn't working. Um, don't do that. And so I promised him I would look at it more when I got back home, and I did. And a couple of folks from the OSMU forum were helping me try and figure this out. And maybe E. Anderson remembers. I can't remember now who actually figured this out, but the problem literally was the password for the Wi-Fi network was the word password, and that was breaking it.
Oh my goodness.
Um, so if you had a network where the password was the word password, you would not be able to join that network with your Bitaxe. And it was like, there it is. Who filed that one? Oh, that's you. All right. E. Anderson, allow the password. It was insane. It was like a UI thing. We kind of have this situation where we don't want to send the actual password to the UI, um, because that would allow someone like who is access the Bitaxe to see the Wi-Fi password.
Hmm.
Um, you shouldn't ever be able to see the Wi-Fi password, right? It's like if you want to change it, you can change it, but you shouldn't be able to see what it is currently. So the UI, over the API, instead of us actually putting in the when you just kind of load up the settings page, instead of us sending back the actual password, we would just send the word password, which works fine. Um, except for we had to then, if you submit the form without changing the password, the Wi-Fi password, it would send it would send the word password as your new Wi-Fi password. And so we had to ignore the word password. So that means if you actually try and change it to the password, it would be ignored, which was in retrospect very silly. And so I think what E. Anderson just said, we the dummy word that we send now is actually like what is it, 7 asterisks. Like it looks like it's a obscured password, but it's actually several asterisks. So yeah, if you have your Wi-Fi password as 7 asterisks, then you're gonna have a problem.
Don't do it. Easy
Don't do it.
fix. I mean, yeah, that's pretty rad. And I mean, to be honest, it's kind of great at the same time. Like having that many random people using the hardware that we created in ways and forms that we never expected is so good for research and development. Because, I mean, imagine if we only had like 100 people using Bitaxes occasionally from time to time, we wouldn't be at the stage where we are right now because nobody would actually be using it. So, actually, having people that are not used to tag and trying stupid things, maybe not so stupid, I don't know, but it's pretty good for us, especially for the development side.
It is. It's amazing. Like I feel sorry for the people that are trying to do this at small companies, totally closed source, proprietary, because maybe they have a head start, but they're going to have a tough time keeping up with us. We move really quickly. We got a lot of eyes on things. It's pretty awesome.
All right, let's move along. We now do have the stratum difficulty sent by the API as well. Great. Okay. Let's see. We do have a set proper size and hex to bin by Mutachum, the 471. Did you check on that?
I did. I did. That was like one of these kind of traditional buffer overflow type problems. It seemed like just a kind of good practice thing. I think even Muchachim said it wouldn't happen in practice, but it's always good to sort of check the bounds on when you're accepting like strings from an API or from the user in some ways, to like do a bounds checking on them before you just kind of blindly put it in memory. That's like a classic way to hack programs, is to hammer the inputs and see if you can start changing arbitrary bytes. C is pretty cool like that, in that if you're like reading data and putting it into an array in memory, and you have allocated, let's say, 21 bytes for that array, and you just put in more than 21 bytes, if you don't do any bounds checking, it'll just keep writing it to memory, and it'll go past the sort of memory that has been allocated for that particular array and just into whatever's next in memory. And so there's people who spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to strategically do that and write memory into locations that they don't technically have access to. So it's good to check the bounds on these types of things, and I'm pretty sure that's what was going on with this PR. So seemed like a good idea. Got that merged.
Yeah. Also, I think what we need to discuss a little bit here is going away from this topic to another one, which is having factory images and recovery images, which are basically the same, but the key difference is having self-tests enabled or disabled. And
Oh yeah.
there was always this going back and forth with the web flasher. And by the way, guys, if you haven't checked out the new web flasher, do so. The old one is now offline. I mean, it still exists, but if you do go on the website, you can no longer flash your Bitaxe on the old web flasher. It will give you a link to click on for the new web flasher, which is called bitaxeorg.github.io/bitaxe-web-flasher. It's a new design. It's a new backend that's running on there. It's working way better. But apart from that, the main issue there was that what do you want to have on the web flasher? Do you want to actually have a factory file? So for manufacturers who are producing BitXs, and then they just need to plug it in and the self-test will run through it? Or do we want to have like a file where you can just flash your BitX and it will start working again because you messed up something, but you don't want to deal with the self-test? And there was always this debate on some versions I released it with the self-test, on other versions I released it without the self-test, and now we are away from it. But the thing is, I'll probably add this in there again, but a little bit different. So my idea with the web flasher now is, and I'm not sure who was it, but someone brought the idea up to me, and I think that's quite a good idea of having like a drop-down menu where you can select if you want to flash the factory file or the recovery file. Um, I think that would be the better approach to handle things with the BitX web flasher. But yeah, we now also do have recovery files being processed by GitHub, which is amazing. Thanks again to E. Anderson, because it is so funny. We are stressing out and squeezing these GitHub servers. I believe every time we do a change, it runs in GitHub action. So the GitHub servers are wasting a lot of energy on the stuff we do on this repo.
So I have some thoughts about this image thing.
Mm.
Um, so the self test was originally created by Ben to use in the factory, right? The idea being is that he's making tons of bit axes, and the self test would allow him to quickly run a suite of tests to see if the bit axe has been assembled properly, and it's working great. And so the idea was that you plug it in, and the first ever time you run this firmware on it, it would run the self test, and then if it failed, it would just like stop. It would like you can't sell that bit axe because it's not working, right? It needs work, and so there was no like, it basically wouldn't work again until you reflashed it and the self test passed. So there was no like way to get out of a failed situation. The idea being is you need to go and rework the hardware or something to fix this particular bit axe. And so that self test being enabled is what we were calling the factory images. So factory images would allow you to completely reset. It would flash all the partitions on your bit axe, and it would set this self test to run. And then if the self test passed, the self test wouldn't run again. So the idea being is that if it passes, it's good to sell. You can mail that out to the sellers or whoever. The problem then became, now we have these factory images out there, and we're generating these factory images for all the different BitAxe versions. And that went on to the web flasher. And it turns out there's a lot of other people using the web flasher. I think a lot of the sellers redirect people who are having problems to the web flasher because it's a really awesome way to just reset your BitAxe and then, try and fix problems you might have from an incorrectly operating firmware. The problem is that people were using the web flasher to flash their bit axes kind of like at home to try and fix problems, and the self-test would run. And the self-test was very calibrated towards operating on brand new bit axes that had just been made, that weren't already hot from running for days, or weren't. It had a narrow set of parameters so that it could find failures out of the manufacturing process. But when people were running it at home, their BitX would fail, and they don't have the ability to do hardware reworks to fix it. And in some cases, the BitX wasn't even really broken. It was just they wanted to flash the firmware for whatever reason. But now that the self-test was failing, their BitX was definitely broken. It was essentially bricked because there was no way to get out of a failing self-test. So that's why a lot of people were complaining to me about that. So that's why I was telling Wanclu, I said, let's set the web flasher to not run self-test on any of the units that are flashed by the web flasher. So that was cool, I thought, because now people could reset their bid axes, the self test wouldn't run, and we wouldn't have to worry. Some of the sellers and some of the testers got back to me like, no, 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 we like the self test. We like the self test because we can use that to diagnose problems that people might have with their bid axes. It's like, oh, geez. Okay. So that's how we got into this situation of like, do we enable self test on the web flasher or not? We kind of want both.
If I do can give like a quick comment on that. To be honest, I mean I don't want to be an ass, but if you're a manufacturer, you should consider at least getting into it and using a CLI for setting up the self test yourself. I mean, sure. Now that I'm considering adding the self test back again with like a drop down menu where you can select it, that's a thing. But yeah, I mean, you
Well,
know,
I think we got a solution here. I think we've got a solution now. So I think going forward with 2.4.1, I've changed self test. So
hmm,
now if you fail self test, it says it on the screen, but you can press and hold the boot button, and it will restart normally, and it'll stop. And won't run the self test again, even if it failed.
yeah,
Um, the idea being there is that people who just need to do diagnosis, they can run the self test. They can use the web flasher, which will run the self test. They can see if they have any problems. They can tell the seller, what it said, or they can try and diagnose it, fix it themselves. The factory, they can look at the screen and be like, "Oh, it failed self-test. We need to rework this thing." Um, in fact, if you're in a failed state of the self-test, you can just press the reset button and it will run self-test again. Or you can long press the boot button and it won't run self-test again.
which
So I
is a
think,
great feature. Thanks for adding that in there.
yeah, I think this means that right now we don't with 2.4.0 we do not want the web flasher to run self-test because
Correct.
it'll brick people's devices. But with 2.4.1, when that finally comes out, um, we can set the web flasher to run self-test for all devices. So that means we only need the factory image. And I think
We now
we can
we
just,
do have a new CI from Anderson, which is producing recovery images as well now. So I
I
mean,
don't think
when
we need recovery images anymore. I mean, famous last words, but I think the way we've got it now, we don't need recovery images. We just need the factory image, and that will work in all cases. Like if you just want to recover, you can use the factory image. It'll run the self test, and no matter what self test comes up with, you can just continue using your bidax as it was before.
hmm. I mean, yeah, I do agree. I do agree, and I like it that you can just opt out of the self test with just a button press, which is okay, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean it takes a second, and maybe it'll be informative, maybe not. That's kind of between whoever's you and whoever's trying to debug this thing.
Hmm.
It prints a lot of information out to the over USB too. So our screen's pretty small. You don't really get to see everything that's happening and like what the details of the failure might be. For that, you really need to hook up to USB. But yeah, my hope is that we don't have to like have recovery images and factory images. I think going forward, just factory images for everything.
Yeah.
It's good to talk about this. I think it's been confusing. There's been a bunch of flail on this topic. As we like have bugs and it's tough because like people are like, we're talking about it on OSMU. People are talking to me about it on Twitter. I'm sure you guys are hearing about it from different places. So um, it's good to, I guess, get on the same page and be like, this is what we're going to try and do. And of course, let me know if you think this is a bullshit idea. But
No,
think,
I do
famous
think
last words.
it's
I
a
think
great
it's going to work.
idea. I was just reading another article quickly. Sorry. No, I do think having this on the self test that it fails and you can still go out of it is a necessary feature, especially with the fact that you just pointed out that a couple of people are running self-tests on hot devices, and for whatever reason, it is too narrow on the specs that we do have, so it would fail. So it's good, especially if you do know, all right, my Bitaxe is running, but I fucked up something, and now I can just reflash it, just press the button, and I'm back up. That's totally fine. No, I do like that. I'm just now again in this position where I need to think about, all right, should I apply the recovery images or the factory images to the web flasher? Uh-huh.
4.1 factory images. We
All
can
right.
just skip this recovery image
Okay,
idea.
boss. Sir, yes, sir.
Make it so.
I mean, with that,
Oh,
these
no
are
typing.
mostly all of the changes from 241. We didn't talk about a couple other ones. They will be covered by my video if we release it. But apart from that,
Dude,
rm-rf
I mean,
recovery. Oh
I'm
my
very
goodness.
excited about LVGL.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, we haven't talked about LVGL. Um, so let's dive into that.
yeah, Mutatram took on this big task. This is a big job, and apparently he's got this massive PR because he had to change like basically everything. Um, but LVGL is a display library, and it's a proper display library. What we've had so far with the built-in OLED, that is not a proper display library. It was a total hack. I just threw it in there just to test out the display, and we kind of just like went with it. But LVGL is, you know, the right way to do a display. It gets us all kinds of cool things like scrolling text, like the screens can wipe from one side to the other. We can do different fonts, position stuff all around. LVGL is badass. It actually even handles button presses. So um, some of the code that you did, want clue for handling the buttons for changing the display and
Mm.
turning off the Wi-Fi or turning back on the Wi-Fi. That can be handled by LVGL now. So Mutatram has got it working. He posted a cool video.
Where did he post it? In the firmware chat? I've seen it. I've seen it. Or was it in the firmware
Yeah,
PR
what was
review? Firmware PR review, I believe. Yeah, that is.
okay?
So, guys, please go into the firmware PR review channel. Scroll up to today, uh, 7 hours ago. There's a small video of the screen, and just give it a heart or a fire. It is cool. So, Mutachum, really, that's impressive work working on LVGL. I looked into the LVGL library and I was like, that sounds like a future loss problem.
It's a beast. It's a beast. Uh, but dude, so rad. Here, I'll post the link in the chat. Um,
There we go.
Go check that video out. It's so cool. Um,
So, I mean, so we do have the version 241 beta 2 or beta 3 out there now. Uh, yeah, some of these beta 3 is out there. So I'm waiting sort of for the last couple of things from Mutatrum on LVGL to make it into 241. Let's see how long he takes on that. Especially it will take a couple of days to review all of that because I've taken a quick look into it and there are plenty of changes. So we need to make sure it's not interfering with any other stuff. But I think moving over to LVGL will also enable plenty of other cool things with the screen. And it will be way better for future Bitaxe devices with SPI displays.
yes. Bitmaker can correct me if I'm wrong, but Sean, your question, how will LVGL affect the NerdX display? I think it's already using LVGL. That's why it looks so rad.
Yeah, the NerdX is already using LVGL, so every Nerd whatever device is using the LVGL library. It is pretty insane how it's implemented there.
I remember Bitmaker was like telling me what a pain in the ass it was to use it. I think he had to port it over from Arduino for the Nerdax, and it was a big task. So um,
Mm.
badass. Yeah,
You do have a
I'm looking forward
question.
to it. I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just about to say that you do have a question in the chat from Clear if architecture is still needed for the bidex.
Yes. Oh man, we it is. It is. I'm really like procrastinating on this like massive over architecture like rewrite. I started it a while back. Um and you know, it's tough to like redesign the car while you're driving it. Uh as you know, fix the car, redesign the car like while you're driving it, which is what we're trying to do. But still, I think it's a good idea. I think we're going to kind of have to do it incrementally um, as we go. But I still would very much like to have like kind of an overall architecture document for the firmware.
I
Um,
mean,
so yeah, I mean,
in the
this would be
background, I
great. I think
was
we need to work on it sort of all together
yeah,
to get everyone on
that's the
board.
thing. In the background, I was working on a couple of diagrams for the ESP Miner firmware, and one of the biggest issues is like adding dependencies into the diagram and making sure which one is connected to which, and adding all these functions. It gets big. It's a really big mind map basically, and I need to put it into some sort of a good diagram. I do have a couple of block diagrams and other things that I'm looking forward to publish onto the OSMU wiki page, as well as on the ESP Miner firmware, so that people do get a better understanding of architecture that we currently do have. And moving forward with taking a look on how the current architecture is, I do believe um, making it into a shift of having a more structured architecture will improve the overall workflow. So for everybody who's wondering now, like, why the heck do we need this? Do we need this actually for the firmware? You could argue with a no, but in general, you want to create your software in a way that it is understandable by as much people as possible, especially if you're into open source tech stuff. I mean, you've probably looked into a GitHub repository of some open source dev, and you were wondering like, where the heck do I find what's going on in here? And by releasing something like an architecture paper with diagrams like flow charts and everything else, you do get a better understanding, especially I don't know, this is some sort of project management shit. Um, so it is kind of not needed, but it is nice to have to understand it without looking at everything. You now do only have this one document where you take a look at, and you probably need like 1 or 2 hours to understand everything, but then you do understand where is what kind of function, what does it do, and how does it connect to other things. So it is just doing everything better. Oh,
Yeah, I
let's
was just looking
see.
at the
Chat is
comments
going
there.
crazy here.
Yeah, TDB3 is championing a C++ implementation on a number of parts, which will, I mean, having like true object-oriented, you know, sort of first-class support in the firmware would just make things so much easier, especially to keep it more modular.
I mean, are we talking
Um,
about C++ for ESP Miner?
yeah.
It already exists. I mean,
What?
PMAX already ported it over to C++, so
Yeah, I don't think it's embedded though necessarily. I know that there's some differences in how it needs to work because
yeah.
we still kind of have to play along with FreeRTOS
Hmm.
and uh, how that works with the ESP32. So it's not like just a straight up port from what PMAX has because that's meant for running on Linux with a full on OS. But I'm hoping that TDB3 can look at what PMAX has. I'm hoping that Keela can weigh in on this too. I mean, you know, it's a big job, so there's definitely plenty of work for everyone to do. We don't want to be stepping on everyone's toes, but this would be really excellent to have going forward. And I really do want to, you know, I really do want to have this sort of at least similarity to the extent that it's possible of sort of the embedded code and the Linux code for ESP Miner.
Mm-hmm.
Because it turns out there's a lot of big industrial mining machines out there too that are running Linux and currently have bullshit closed source software. So I think this could be a very important thing going forward, to have mining firmware that is extensible and open source to support a wide variety of different machines.
Right, PMAX was saying no, not true. It's ESP32 miner ported to C++. I mean,
Is it still using FreeRTOS though?
the link Anderson ported. Ah, all right, gotcha. Um, I mean, it should be from, yes, of course, still the same, just C++. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, I
Any
guess I have to take a look at that. I can't quite wrap my head around how that even works. But
Schultz was asking any updates on the website fix. I am assuming you're talking about opensourceminers.org. So if you open up the webpage right now, it tells you there's a certificate issue. We're working on that. Let's say that. So like as most of the things that we do have, a couple of things are hosted by one entity and other things are hosted by another entity. And if people are offline or not responding, you do have issues of resolving issues. So it takes a little bit of time, but we are aware of the fact that there's an issue, as well as with the bots that I've explained earlier today, that we need to figure out a better way of handling everything, and we will get onto that.
yeah, we'll get it sorted out. This is sort of the downsides to running an organization decentralized.
But apart from that, I do believe it's like the only downside, which is not even bad. Like, oh, our website is not with a certificate. Oh my God, it's so bad. I mean, I do get it. It looks better if you don't need to press on yes, I trust the website. I do get it. Let's see. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So just some C++ comments here in the chat. All right. Apart from that, guys, do you have any questions actually? Because we are in our 1 hour period. The town halls are, as always, usually for you. And guys, literally, I need to say thanks for that many people being here in the town hall today. From week to week, it's getting better and more people are interested in the town hall. It's just amazing having you here and being your host and just talking about things that we are doing with Bitaxe and the ESP miner. It's just amazing.
No update on the block dev kit. I haven't really been working on it from them. They sent out a new firmware version, but still waiting on open source firmware and documentation for that from them. They Yeah, no updates there. Looking forward to it. I think they committed. They actually released a website, a new website. It's called Proto, I think now.
Mm-hmm.
What is that website? Does anyone remember? Proto.build?
Something like that. I don't recall the exact URL.
No, it's not called that. It's block.
All right, if you guys haven't done so, grab yourself a drink and get comfy, because
Proto.xyz. That's what it is. Check out proto.xyz. That's the latest webpage about Block's mining project, their mining hardware project with their chip and the miner.
Clear is pointing out that we
on-
do need another block from a Bitaxe. Guys, hook up your Bitaxe. You know what's funny? Earlier in the beginning of OSMU, and the early days where I was doing like the first couple of videos about Bitaxe devices, and when I was checking it out and getting involved and everything, it was quite funny because I created their subreddit Bitaxe, and I was not aware about the fact of the camel cases in that we don't use camel cases with Bitaxe. So it's just the word Bitaxe with a capital letter B, and that's it. There's no camel case on the A. Period. Need to point that out here. Um, it's quite funny. I do see more and more resellers listing their Bitaches with camel cases. Or it's so funny in Germany, if you do talk about Bitaches, most of the people and most of the resellers that I haven't corrected so far, they pronounce it completely wrong. It's like Bitaxe.
Oh, wow. Is this like some German translation thing?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, eggs is it's the same word in English and in German, but Bitaxe, yeah, it's like this hurts to listen to. Yeah, WSSH. Yeah, it's Bitaxe, not Bitaxe with a capital A. No camel
Yeah, it's still the
cases.
Satoshi's fault. They made that super cool logo with the anarchy symbol in the middle, which has a capital A. And I think several people ran with that. Um, that's a pretty rad logo. I really like those stickers and the shirt. Uh, but yes, it's traditionally lowercase a in the middle. I saw the other day someone had a space in there. It was like two different
What?
words, bit and axe. And I was like, oh
Oh,
boy.
whoa, that's getting weird.
Yeah.
Hey, do you have any Linux pros here? Crypto Ice is asking in the chat how to edit with the Vim Linux editor. I mean,
Yeah. Good hat.
oh, take a look on that head. Yeah, that's rad.
Oh,
I mean, the biggest issue with the bit eggs and with the Anarchy A on this head is that people assume the A is capital A.
yeah, right. You can't do the anarchy logo with a lowercase a.
No,
That's not
that would look shit.
That's gonna look like an at sign, like in your email.
Like, I want to get that head and a little bit of the beard. I need a little bit more.
This championship beard too. Very nice.
Can you ship the beard too?
Give me that fucking hat. So I was in Sao Paulo a couple weeks ago in Brazil, and this guy came up to me. He's like, "Oh man, you got the anarchy sign there." And I was like, "Oh, guys, I was wearing my Bidax anarchy shirt from Solo Satoshi," and I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And he's like, "Well, what's that all about?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I mean, it's sort of a project without any rules to make Bitcoin miners." He was like, "Oh yeah, no, I know that." And then he proceeded to tell me that apparently the color of the anarchy logo means different things.
What?
And yeah, so if your anarchy symbol is in red, that means you are a anarcho socialist. If it's in yellow, you're an anarcho capitalist. And he was telling me all this, and I'm like, wow, this is kind of blowing my mind. We were also in like a very loud like music venue, so it was kind of hard to hear exactly what was going on. But apparently, the color of the logo means something. Um, I think it looks significantly better in red myself, but
Hmm.
yeah, I
I
haven't I
didn't know
haven't looked
that.
this up to like verify this. This might be fake news, but yeah, I think if you're deep into like the politics of anarchy, then the colors mean something.
Okay, let's see what the AI is telling me. Based on the provided search result, yes, here are some of the mentions of the anarchy logo colors. Black and red. These colors have been associated with the anarchism since the late 1800s. The black flag, in particular, has been a symbol of anarchism, representing negotiation, anger, outrage, and mourning. Red, on the other hand, was initially used as a symbol of socialism and the working class, but later became associated with Bolshevism and communist parties. Red.
Okay, so that might be the anarcho-socialism. I don't actually even know what anarcho-socialism is and how that defaults from
I have
anarcho-capitalism.
no idea. Like, I'm not into politics. I just do Bitcoin mining.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's probably it's like when you're looking at different music genres, they're like, "No, man, that's not like drum and bass. That's, something else, some other weird genre." There's like every song has its own like sub genre. So, you can dig into any of these rabbit holes and go as far as you want.
I mean, to be honest, especially with like a project like Bitaxe or this open source community in general, it's quite wild, especially if you do go on podcasts. And I believe you have experienced this yourself a little bit as well. Like as soon as you do tell the people, all right, hey, we're building like mining devices, we are producing software and hardware, open source, free to use for everybody, and you can do it, you can change it, you can manufacture it, you can become a millionaire by just producing tens of thousands of these units and uh, decentralizing the mining industry again, which is the best thing in the world to do. And out of a sudden, sometimes these people are trying to get you or lure you into a political statement scheme thingy. And
Oh yeah.
it is so weird to me. I always disrupt them, and I'm always like, stop, I'm not talking politics. I'm doing software, I'm doing partially hardware because I'm more on the software part, and I don't care about politicians or politics in general. I don't care if you're black, white, yellow, green, or whatever, or if you do prefer to be a cat. I don't even give a fuck about that. I just want to do Bitcoin. That's all that belongs to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people come into this with different motivations and different ideas as to what they want, what they think the best way forward is, what they want to work on. So, politics weaves its way in. Like I saw Trump at the Nashville thing. So there was definitely some politics going on there. But yeah, I think I agree with you too. It's like I think that Bitcoin fixes this, whatever we're talking about,
Yes.
and it is it is not a waste to focus on Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. Like it is not a waste at all. It's incredibly important. We need to get this right, and it can be very beneficial in the future, I think, to nail it. And also that Bitcoin's success is not assured. Like, we can't just completely throw up our hands and be like, all right, it's done. All we need to do is stack sats and the future will be great. Like the success is not assured. It's still early. There's plenty of things to do. So yeah, just working on Bitcoin. That's the way to go, in my opinion.
I'm quickly trying to search something. I saw this post early on X where you were talking about that. Um, do you remember the when Meta was trying to create their own cryptocurrency? Was it called Libra or something like that?
Yeah, Libram. Yeah, I read
Libra.
that article, that post from the guy who I guess worked on it. And he was talking about how they had to like, make all these changes for the regulators and stuff. And in the end, they still were like, no, why don't you just, or they talked to all the banks and were like, no, we're not into
It's
it
quite funny,
anymore.
but what I was trying to point out is I read a quick post about a partially section of this article, which was like a review of the overall cryptocurrency and if they should move along with that and if they should actually implement it or not. And we all know they just failed for multiple reasons. But the biggest thing that was really pointing out there to me was like in one of the last sentences, and I don't recall the correct quote of it, but it was more or less something like, all right, with creating a new currency which is truly decentralized and is empowering the people instead of a regulational entity, you would fail unless you are Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Bob Burnett says this all the time. Like the situation that created Bitcoin is like a once in a, 1,000 year situation. Like or more. I think actually he said 3,000 years. But basically, the idea being that the situation that and the set of circumstances that brought about Bitcoin is not reproducible. Um, and any other attempts to do it, like for any, shit coins or CBDCs, right? It's not going to be able to be developed into what Bitcoin is. Partially because Bitcoin has already happened, has already been started, right? But just sort of all the developments that led up to Satoshi in the white paper, and then the development that continued after Satoshi stepped away, like it's
Especially
just
this
not
is this is
reproducible.
like one of the biggest factors about Bitcoin, that he she it how many whoever was it stepped away. Like this is the key point of this project compared to everything else that is out there. And now, sure, you could argue about things like, oh, what about this cryptocurrency, or what about this cryptocurrency? Yeah, no, I don't give a fuck. Like, all these things are somehow tied to some people or some entities somehow. There is something to lure back. And now you could also argue about the fact, sure, but if you want to be uh, destructive on Bitcoin, you could just force the current developers and do them shady stuff and push it and merge it into Bitcoin, and everybody's downloading it on their node, and now everybody is fucked. Yeah, sure, you can do that, but it's way easier to do this with plenty other cryptocurrencies or with altcoins, shitcoins out there, because usually they are tied to a company or to a couple entities. Doing this on Bitcoin is way more harder. And I do know the amount of developers that we do have on, for example, Bitcoin Core is limited. It's less than 20 active developers, but it's still harder to do it on Bitcoin than on any other one, especially with the community behind Bitcoin. Let's say, for example, some government would come up with the ludicrous idea of forcing the developers to merge bad behaving code into Bitcoin Core. Guess what? It would take a couple hours and the community would disagree on updating. Have fun with your new shitcoin. We don't use that. And I do know plenty of people that are in this community here in Open Source Miners United. They may or may not be from Germany, but if you are from Germany, or if you do understand German in general, a couple days ago, I don't know the exact word for these in English, but we do have like public television thingy channels, and we do have the TV channel Arte. They released a video on YouTube about Bitcoin, how everything began in German. So it is in German. It's a great 1 hour video about everything around it. There was nothing completely wrong. There were like one or two hiccups where I would argue that they are incorrect or not well explained for somebody who has never heard about it. But in general, like I was sitting on the couch, I was just telling wifey, hey, come along, we watch something. I just showed her this 1 hour video about Bitcoin, and she was like, huh, now I do get a couple of these things, but why did he step away? Like these kind of sort of questions raised up, and it was kind of wild and amazing at the same time. So I just wanted to point that out here. Educate yourself, guys.
It's a pretty crazy mystery. Like it adds a lot of intrigue to the project, I think, for a lot of people.
I mean, you could argue why he stepped away. Like literally, it was this thing. Like, who was it who actually had a conversation with Bitcoin and the FBI? And someone was pointing out Bitcoin to the FBI, and he pointed it out to
Oh,
Satoshi.
Gavin,
Gavin, yeah,
Gavin
Gavin
from
had a
Houston.
chat with the FBI about Bitcoin, and he
That
pointed
was
this
the
out to Satoshi. 24 hours later, Satoshi was never seen again. But,
Yeah, that's right. Was it the FBI? I think it was the NSA, maybe.
or the
Anyways,
NSA,
yeah,
something like
one of
that.
those
So there are some
scary
conspiracy
entities.
theories about maybe that Satoshi was, I don't know, taken down or something like that. I don't believe that. For my personal opinion, that's just my opinion, I do believe he drew the red line exactly at this moment and said, all right, I'm good to go. This is now your baby. Have fun, community. Because especially from all the conversations that you do see on Bitcoin Forum and all the other email lists that he was involved in, you can clearly see that he always wanted to bring himself or herself, I just say him, it is whatever, into this position of not being a failing point of Bitcoin. Especially in the early days, there was like this big debate about what could happen to Bitcoin in general and what could cause it to fail. And since the beginning till today, we only had like 3 outages on the blockchain, and the last one is over 10 years ago. Since then, Bitcoin has never been down, which is a huge accomplishment in general. Compare this to any other company. Compare this to shitcoins like Solana is going down every 2 days or something like that. It's a good meme, but Bitcoin had never had any sort of failing point in general, I'd say, apart from him, her, or this group behind it. So my suspicion is that this conversation with like a big government from a country was the red line to say, all right, I need to go. Otherwise, I do draw this project, aka Bitcoin, into danger. That's my theory.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really hard to know. I mean, it would seem like there's a big case for being that Satoshi isn't alive anymore. That's like a pretty good way to disappear from the project. But clearly, whoever it was knew the importance of maintaining their anonymity like early on, right? Like, I couldn't just disappear because like there's already like way too much information out there linking me as to the Bitaxe project. But Satoshi going into Bitcoin like obviously took all the precautions to make it like nearly impossible to figure out who it was or who they are.
Yeah.
So they knew whatever happened, they knew that this was going to be kept a secret. And so far, it doesn't seem like anyone has figured it out. Right? Mechanics posted that that document from the NSA. Like I could imagine it was the NSA that started it. That seems very probable. Why would they do it? Not quite sure there, but SHA-256 was developed by and I think some of the other encryption methods were developed in part by the NSA. So they're involved in this kind of stuff. Who knows? That's a big organization. Like, yeah, it's really hard to say, but it is impressive that Satoshi has sort of avoided, being identified for this long, especially with, how successful Bitcoin has been.
I always laugh at these scenes or statements of people claiming to be Satoshi.
Yes.
Fake Toshis. All these fake Toshis out there. I always laugh about this situation because it is so stupid. Like, all these precautions taken over this period of time are now stepping out of the shadow, going out there, yeah, I'm Satoshi. Like, what do you even expect? Like, fuck you. Even if the real Satoshi will come out, I'd say just fuck you. Go your way. We take over. This is our project. We don't belong to a single entity. That's the whole point. That's also the point why OSMU exists, because we want to be a community that is deciding about things together. Like, for example, we do have so many maintainers and developers that are actively contributing to this project on the hardware level and on the software level. And I'd say 99% of the time, none of us is just straight up contributing. Only if you do have like, all right, we had a chat and we agreed, okay, this needs to be fixed. I do have a fix. Okay, I just push it. But usually we wait for others to approve changes and merge it. Like, you do create a pull request and you wait for somebody else to push it and to merge it. You don't do stupid shit. And that's the way how it goes. That's how open source goes. And even if Satoshi would come back and he would merge shit into Bitcoin or Bitcoin Core, it wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't happen. That's it.
Yeah, I imagine that the Bitcoin Core GitHub repo was created like post Satoshi, so they probably don't, Satoshi at GMX or whatever his email address was, like probably doesn't have right access to the Bitcoin Core repo.
No, because Bitcoin originally was never called Bitcoin Core.
Yeah, right. Bitcoin Core is just one implementation. I mean, that's important to remember too, is that um, Bitcoin Core does not like control Bitcoin. Sure, they're the most popular node implementation by far, and that they can make small changes that have sort of like unilateral effect over the Bitcoin network. But
I mean, I do remember back in the days when I first downloaded the Bitcoin software, because it was just called Bitcoin, not Bitcoin Core, anything else. It was so funny that you could literally put in an IP address to send Bitcoin. It was, I mean, back in the days, I was stupid. I didn't actually understand what was the cause of that or why could you even do that. But it was literally funny. It was pretty quickly being removed from it. But yeah, it's just one of these funny things in Bitcoin that I do remember from back in the days.
yeah, when it was just an early sort of like hacky project without much value, right?
It's all about
It's like
cypherpunk.
you could kind of screw around and be like, oh yeah, like here's my private keys. Like, I only have like 100 Bitcoin in there. It's not worth much, so whatever.
Literally, I'm interested, guys. Who of you is actually celebrating the BTC Pizza Day?
When is it? Pop quiz.
Pop quiz. All right, let's go. We do a quiz, live quiz here. When is? Okay, people are now googling. Huh?
Do do do
Yeah.
do
Okay, it took too
do
long. People
do
are googling.
do. Bitcoin Pizza Day. That guy, what's his name? What is his name? What's the Bitcoin Pizza
I,
Days?
I would need to. I would need to Google
Oh, it's on the
his.
tip of my tongue. Anyways, I mean that's pretty cool. Like he wanted to like try buying stuff with Bitcoin. Like that's badass. Like sure that was pretty exciting.
Laszlo. Laszlo
Laszlo,
Henjes.
yes. WSSH got it. Laszlo. And I can't even hope to pronounce his last name.
Yeah, back in 2010. I mean, sure, nobody knew, and that's also the thing. Like, it's so funny, especially now. Bitcoin almost rised up to a fiat amount of like 100K, but to be honest, I still don't care about it because it is so funny. People are reaching out. Hey, you do some stuff with Bitcoin, right? Are you rich now? Hey, how are you doing? I'm coming back to you after like 5 years. How's your Bitcoin doing? And I'm like, yo, fuck off. What do you want? And it's so funny to me that people are lurking just into the opportunity of money. And sure, in the end, Bitcoin is just a medium to use for exchange, aka money. But I think we discussed this a couple of times that me personally, I don't even calculate in fiat terms. Like I don't give a fuck. I just purchase with sats. I use my BTC daily. Yesterday I was out for dinner. I had a nice burger. Wifey had
Derek,
a burger as well, and we just paid with sats.
you went out to dinner and paid for stats?
Yeah, of
What place was
course.
it?
It was
That's
like
awesome.
10-minute drive.
I don't think there's any places in my town that
Do
accept
you use BTC, man?
Bitcoin. No, I probably should, huh? All right. Maybe I can get dinner tonight with Bitcoin. That'd be cool.
I mean, I do get it. A couple of people are just in there to hodl, and there are these maxis that say they will hodl till the death. I mean, sure, do it, but I use it as an exchange medium for goods, and in my opinion, it is the most beautiful one. And there are so many different layers. Like we do have Lightning, we have eCash, and all these other things. I don't understand eCash and all the stuff behind that, but Lightning, I do understand that at least. But there are so many things on how to interact and use it, which is this won't happen with your USD or with your dirty other fiat money.
Wow, there's a chain of jewelry stores in my town with 3 locations, and they all accept Bitcoin.
WSSH. I'm not talking about eCash from 1993. I'm talking about the current implementation that we do have, which is sitting between Lightning and on-chain, this kind of thing. I mean, the original eCash from 1993, I do. Yeah, the fucking shitcoin e.cash. Yeah, that one. Like, uh, by the way, guys, we still do have 29 people in here, and I really appreciate it. We are now talking over 1.5 hours about things around Bitcoin. If you say it's enough, we can close it. Otherwise, I do have plenty of wine. My 5 liter bag of wine is halfway empty, so I do have a little bit more to go.
5 liter bag of wine. Damn, dude. That's
How much is
awesome.
5 liter in gallon? I
I
don't know.
don't know.
One,
Who knows?
one,
There's
one
no
gallon is
conversion.
like 3 liters, so it's like 1.7 gallons of wine.
In a plastic bag. Championship.
Yeah.
Solo's got a full can of Zin. Eric Anderson has a 5 liter bag as well.
1 gallon
Leftover
is like
turkey.
3.78 liters, so it's 1.5 gallons, 1.4 gallons, something
Oh,
like
dude,
that.
WSH has got Frenza. That is a bottom of the barrel, bottom tier wine in
Hmm.
a camelback. Boom. Get this party started.
Perfect. I mean, yeah, especially like guys, if anybody of you just want to come up on stage, just raise your hand. Feel free. I'd love to bring you up on stage and just have a quick conversation about things. I mean, Crypto Eyes, you mentioned that you want to talk about SATCOM and communication on this end. I'm not sure if you still want to do that. Or if you guys just want to shit around, feel free to do whatever you want. Getting shwasted. Yeah.
Hazy IPA. Nice. Midwest Chris is going to Munich next week.
Huh? Oh, yeah, I'm not in Munich. I'm sorry.
You got to go to what's that cool the Glockenspiel and that
Okay, he'll be in Munich next week. Where should he visit? So there are a couple of things. So there is like a big place called Marienplatz. Write this down. Marienplatz. Uh, it is nice to use this as your center point and just go around Munich in general. But I don't recommend going to lunch somewhere close to this area because it is like a tourist attraction point. Despite being more on the bad side of a city, I'd go to the central station and go either northwest or north south from the central station and take something to eat there because it's a little bit cheaper and more of a better taste than what you do get at all these tourist attractions.
got to get some like big beers.
Yeah, a mass. That's what you call it, Hofbrauhaus. Yeah, that's the thing. Like you can go into the Hofbrauhaus, but the thing with that is, as I said, it's like there are usually only two places that do have the original prices without any add-ons for being a tourist, and they are far outside of central points. So I wouldn't recommend going into Hofbrauhaus, but I would recommend to go somewhere that looks nice and comfy. Um, to be honest, near the Marienplatz, there is one location that I actually can recommend, which is called the restaurant Schneider. Just
What
write
was
it
that
down,
place you took
Schneider.
us? That was amazing.
Yeah. Schneider. I write it in the chat. Schneider. Near Marienplatz. I just wrote it in the chat. It's an amazing place. It does have 2 floors, like first floor and then second floor. You can choose wherever you want to go. Uh, Obviously, the girls are looking good. The beer is fresh and tasty, and the meat is out of this world. Sadly, you cannot pay with Bitcoin, but if you do use BTC Map, just use it because me and a friend of mine we onboarded a couple of restaurants all around Munich with Bitcoin payment terminals. So yeah. Hey, a couple of news. I just recently received a couple of minutes ago the new pictures of the Bitforge Nano. Like we are now sitting at the second revision because we had a couple of smaller bugs. Seems like the Bitforge Nano is coming to us very soon, and hopefully we can make sure that it gets out to the people on Christmas. Oh, that's amazing.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yes. I mean, we do have one prototype which is sort of working, but the bug converter that we used was shit, and I did shit on the software as well. So it was like a double-sided fuck up. But it works with one chip for now. With two chips, the bug converter is for whatever reason not capable, despite the fact that the datasheet says it should be. But it's not. I don't know why. I don't care. We just moved on to another bug converter, the GPS 546, which we also use these days on the Gamma and on the Hex. So this should work flawlessly. There's a bot spammer in firmware. Let's see. Alright, I'll teach 10 individuals to earn, you know what, slash ban, slash that, delete messages of the last 7 days, reasons, go fuck yourself, hard mommy. There you go. Alright.
Yeah, I'm probably going to Mining Disrupt. That's a fun one.
Pardon? Can you repeat that?
Oh, Rain Bitcoins was asking if I was going to Mining Disrupt, or I guess he was asking if anyone's going to Mining Disrupt. I'm planning on going. Kind of like early summer in Florida. It's good times. Highly recommend checking it out if you're anywhere nearby there. They're doing it at a new location this time, which I think is cool because the hotel there is pretty that they were at before is pretty bad. Topic request. Ask about the willingness to reverse engineer other type of ASIC chips. EG. What does EG even stand for? For example, Avalon's, our own gate arrays, others. I don't know what our own gate arrays is, but
Sounds like a
yeah, someone was
drink.
asking me about reverse engineering other chips. I feel like um, I don't have a strong motivation to do it
So
unless there's one that
wait.
is.
We're talking about chips for Bitcoin or chips for other shitcoins.
Definitely not doing any shitcoin chips. I
Good.
don't got time for that. I think this is other Bitcoin mining ASICs. My thought, at least for the time being, is that the I don't want to invest the time to reverse another chip unless it's open, right? Like Bitmain is the leader of the pack right now. They're far ahead of their competitors. They've got a pretty nicely done chip that we are, increasing our understanding of pretty quickly. I feel like the next chip in a BitX, I'd really like it to be an open chip. Like maybe it's not fully open source, but it's at least like documented and available. Um, I think that the sort of the number two is MicroBT's What's Miner, but it's just like that's just trading one, closed source annoying implementation for another. And so I'm not sure that makes a lot of sense to invest a lot of time in. I mean, obviously, if anyone wants to do it, that would be rad. You could we have a What's Miner channel on OSMU. So
Yeah, a couple of people
if you're
are.
interested, go for it. I think I am kind of like, not interested. I would much rather do a miner with blocks chip or maybe even the Intel chip.
I mean, yeah, a couple of people are occasionally hopping into the What's Miner or What's Eggs channel. It is super hard to reverse engineer them. I mean, we figured out partially the beginning, I'd say, a couple of things like they do have different communication channels and communication baud rates, and sort of the communication is also encrypted on these chips for whatever reason. I mean, it's hard to tell why they are that big into encrypting everything, especially like they only have a market share which is less than 3% of the overall ASIC machines out there. So I'm not really sure why they do it. I mean, proprietary is one thing, but being proprietary as Bitmain and sort of enabling projects like us is another thing. Like, do you actually, from a capitalist standpoint of view, and I call myself a capitalist. If I produce a product, do I actually want to strict it down that much that people cannot use it for other occasions as well? Because if I would limit that, projects like the Bitaxe would never happen. Therefore, I would sell less. Therefore, my capitalism wouldn't be capitalism. I would just be stupid. Me stupid, not good.
Don't be stupid.
Don't be stupid. Don't be what's miner. Micro
Yeah, I
BT.
mean, what's mine is cool. Like, it's good to have it's good to have a competitor. I
Yes.
mean, the more competitors, the better. Um, Also, it's just like not as easy to get those chips. They're not as good. It would be, any sort of bidax made with a current What's Miner chip, as far as I know, would be less performant than what we have now. Um, uh, it's like interesting from like a sort of like nerdy hacker's perspective. I'd love to know more about how they work, but it's also kind of expensive to do. You got to like buy a couple of the machines and like um, spend some time doing it. So. Uh,
Okay,
Yeah, I think
good.
stick with Bitmain for now. Like we still have plenty of work to do to better support the Bitmain chips on the Bitaxe. So it's not like we're hurting for anything to do.
Mm. There's another thing, like Rain Bitcoins is writing in the chat. Would be nice to arrange some sort of BitX dinner meetup thingy. I mean, sure, a couple of these people are in here from the other side of the ocean, from the US. I myself are from Europe, as well as a couple other lads. And there's this idea from Crypto Eyes doing another meetup in London, near London, something like that. So I don't know if any of you guys who are listening to this right now or later on the recording are interested. Just reach out to Crypto Eyes or me or something like that. Short before Christmas, I don't know, like the 14th or 21st of December, like a quick meetup.
Man, I've been traveling all around the world this year, going to Bitcoin conventions, and it's been awesome. Like I love meeting up with Bitcoiners, especially people that are into home mining and stuff. So we should definitely, meet up in some form or another in where is it? It's in Florida. Where I forget where it is this year. It's in a different town. It's not in Miami. Um, but I guess as Fort Lauderdale. There we go. Thank you. As if anyone's going to be in Nairobi, Kenya next week, hit me up. I'm going to be over
Oh,
there
you
for
in
the
Kenya?
African Bitcoin conference.
Oh my goodness. Uh, do you know if wait, Blockstream will be there for sure. But I'm thinking about what foundation. Are foundation also over there?
I haven't heard. No, Foundation's based in the U.S.
No, but do they attend to it?
I don't know. I haven't seen any of Zach or anyone like that on the list of speakers.
I'd kill
Uh,
to get my hands on one of their phones. Like, I really want to take a look on that.
their phones? You mean their hardware wallets?
Yeah. Wait, am I mixing? Maybe I'm mixing
I don't
things
think
up.
Foundation has been teasing a new device that they're going to release like middle of December. But as far as I know, so far um,
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm talking about the
they just
hardware
make hardware
wallet,
wallets.
which looks like a phone. You know, this like
Yeah, it
Nokia
looks like a little
Nokia
like one of those
style
old
phone.
like candy bar style phones. Yeah, yeah,
Passport,
yeah,
there it is. That's
yeah.
I'd love
No,
to
it's
take a
super
look on
cool.
that.
It's really nicely done, um, and it's open source. It's pretty
Yeah.
badass. The firmware is open source. The hardware is open source. Like they develop all their stuff in secret, but then once they finish it, they release it all open source, which is badass. I feel like that needs to be more widely known that they have committed to that, which is cool. Open source is seriously so important. Yes, 100% correct. E. Anderson. telling it like it is.
All right. It's getting late. I do recommend I'll close this today's town hall here. We are sitting at 1 hour 44, which is amazingly long. And I'd say we
Thanks to
just
everyone for joining us.
no, yeah. That's definitely a thing. I suggest that we go over in the channel, voice channel, and have a chat over there because my wine is still not empty. But the town hall should end here. We don't want to be too long on a session for recording. So I thank everybody for being here today and listening to us. I hope everybody enjoyed it, had a little bit of insights in firmware changes and releases and upcoming changes. And hopefully you love everything. You love open source. Open source is freedom. Open source everything. Thanks for being here and see you again in 2 weeks.
Bye bye.